Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys and offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Luba Workers Comp, a regional insurance carrier dedicated to providing reliable workers' compensation coverage to employers and workers in 13 states across the Southeast. With personalized service, trusted expertise, and tailored solutions, Luba helps businesses protect what matters most. Discover more at lubawc.com. And by JP Morgan Chase, a partner in financial planning. Looking ahead to retirement, growing your business, or for commercial banking, JP Morgan Chase offers advice and solutions tailored to individual needs and client well-being. More information is at jpmorganchase.com.
From Mansers on the Boulevard on Corporate Boulevard in Baton Rouge, we're out to lunch with Amy Irvin. It's business, Baton Rouge style.
Hi, I'm Amy Irvin. Welcome to Out to Lunch. By all accounts, it's difficult to land a job or even an interview right now. There's all kinds of reasons for that, including a stagnant labor market and sluggish hiring by cautious employers. Recent college graduates are bearing the brunt of what is one of the most challenging markets in years, with entry-level, white-collar jobs being especially hard to secure. If you are unemployed and looking for inspiration, you're in the right place. It took nearly 18 months for my lunch guest, Nick Miner, to be offered a job in design after graduating from LSU. After months of getting nowhere in his job search, Nick took a more aggressive approach to applying, made an e-portfolio, and started introducing himself to agencies. He ultimately landed a job at Mesh, a local ad agency where he was hired as the art director. Today, Nick Miner owns his own business, Miner Design Company, specializing in logo design, branding, art direction, packaging design, illustration, and graphic design. Nick Miner, welcome to Out to Lunch.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Tony Zanders was born and raised in New Orleans, but made his career in tech in Boston and Silicon Valley. 11 years ago, he returned to Louisiana to be closer to family, and during the pandemic, launched his second tech startup, SkillType. Leaning into an international network of venture capitalists, Tony fundraised a $4 million investment for his company from contacts in London, Silicon Valley, New York, Miami, and in Louisiana, proving the old adage, it pays to have friends in high places. While building his company in Baton Rouge, Tony became a coach and mentor at Nexus, Louisiana. In 2024, Tony threw his hat in the ring for the role of president and CEO and was tapped for the position by the board. Today, he oversees $10 million in annual revenue at Nexus, Louisiana. Tony Zanders, welcome to Out to Lunch.
Great to be here.
Nick, in the bygone days, before social media, businesses relied on broadsheets or ads placed in the newspaper to promote their goods and services. Then, with the advent of the internet, they created websites with catchy phrases easily searchable on Google. Today, business owners rely on content creators or even influencers to entice customers on social media. Yet at Miner Design Company, you are taking another approach altogether by creating artful experiences for your hospitality clients. It seems to me your approach to design and marketing harkens back to an earlier era before social media and even the internet. Do you believe the industry is slowly swinging away from tech?
No, I don't think it's swinging away from tech, but I think we are bombarded every day online, in person, and so I think our strategy has to be a little bit different now. I think traditional media works, it always has, but I feel like we're getting a little numb to it. We see it all the time, and so an approach I like to take is creating experiences for brands. And so for me, that means a lot more personal interaction with people. That's how I build my business. They always say your network is your net worth, and I 100% believe in that. And so it's about building trust, and how can you do that with a brand authentically.
Do you have some favorite influencers, though, that you're following?
Yeah, I follow a lot of influencers. So I can't think of any off the top of my head, but yeah, I mean,
they obviously haven't left too much of an impression on you.
Yeah, yeah. I think we're moving into what they call like a comfort influencer age, where it's like we had this pretty picturesque influencer for a while, where you're taking trips, and now people just want to feel approachable. They want to feel like they know you, and I feel like those are the people that I'm drawn to now. So maybe they don't have a huge following, but it's more about like, oh, I connect with that person. I understand them. So I think that's the influencers that I'm drawn to.
Tony, in the 1990s, the Louisiana State Legislature created the Research Park Corporation, known as Nexus Louisiana. The organization's mission is to connect entrepreneurs in all 64 parishes to the coaching, capital, and connections they need to grow and succeed. It seems to me that this mission would take a great deal of resources, particularly staff. Yet in your first 6 months as CEO of Nexus Louisiana, you've drastically reduced the capacity of the organization, cutting staff from 12 employees to 5, and offboarding 8 tenants who you believe didn't fit the tech mission of the organization. Is that what you were hired to do?
I think I was hired to take the organization to a place where it can reach its potential. Prior to me, there were 4 other presidents and CEOs they had different worldviews or different philosophies on how to run the organization. Many of them ran Nexus as if it was an economic development organization. And the way you measure economic development organizations is by the number of jobs created or the number of dollars that come in. The issue with looking at our organization in that way is that new technology, when it's being born, doesn't actually create jobs. New technologies, when they're born, doesn't actually create revenue. And so the types of communities that we were building over those past four predecessors were leaning towards measuring things like the number of people that came to our events, the number of dollars that these companies raised. But if you optimize for that, you wind up having a certain type of programming, a certain type of event, like pitch competitions. There are certain types of people that want to consult and help you that may have expertise in fundraising or giving a presentation on a stage. Those things are necessary, but they're downstream from the creation of the technology. And so what we winded up having was we had a lot of events, we had a lot of companies that were in our space, but the number of technologies that we produced was going down and down each year. So more people with less technologies being produced. And so my philosophy for managing the organization is a bit different. As a technologist, I'm less interested in the number of jobs that we create. We have other agencies throughout the state that are responsible for that, like Louisiana Economic Development or the SBA or the SBDC, whereas our mandate is unique. We're created to produce new technology across different industries that are key to the state. To do that, it's about having a fewer amount of people that have a skill set to produce technology. So these are folks that have studied engineering disciplines. These are folks who can design products. The state has fewer of them than people who can sell a product or people who can market a product. And we had a disproportionate amount of people to sell and market. They wear nice suits, they can get on stage, they have charisma, they can make the ask to a customer. The problem is we don't have enough technologies produced for them to go and sell. And so we have an upstream problem that we have to solve, that once we get this right, everyone's going to benefit, from economic development to the chambers of commerce like BRAC and GNO Inc. and others. Those folks who are good at selling and marketing products will have more to sell if we get this right.
So I just want to ask you, though, so that I understand, who is Nexus Louisiana accountable to since the Louisiana legislature created it? Is it a board or taxpayers?
Both. Yeah.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
Absolutely. So we're governed by a board of directors. The statute, I'm not sure if you've read it.
No.
Yeah, you probably should. It's about 5 pages, 10 minutes read on Louisiana's legislative website. The board has seats that are statutorily approved for entities such as LSU, Southern University, LED, the city parish of Baton Rouge. And so each of those organizations are able to have their respective presidents or their designees have seats. Then there's also a number of seats on the board specified for members of the business community and the technology community. And so we've filled those with people from industry. And I report directly to that board. So that's from a governance perspective. From a funding perspective, it's slightly different. Our funding comes from a few different sources. The chief of which is the East Baton Rouge Parish hospitality tax. We receive 1.5% revenue of that tax, of that annual revenue. And so that gives us about $1.5 million a year currently. We also receive grants as a nonprofit from the state, from the federal government, increasingly from philanthropy as well. So the funding is sort of structured that way. The governance is related but slightly separate. So we are accountable to both taxpayers, which in this era of governmental efficiency, as a taxpayer myself, I'm asking questions that everyone else is, which is if we have organizations like the Small Business Administration or the SBDC that's responsible for helping coach small business entrepreneurs, why do you need a nexus, right? What's the goal of nexus if we have other groups supporting entrepreneurship writ large?
Nick, you've worked on several award-winning rebrand projects, including Kingfisher Sea Brand, a brand that expanded into Fairhope, Alabama. You won a Gold American Advertising Award for that work. How challenging is a rebrand? What's the process from a design perspective?
I think a successful brand identity starts with strategy. So you're looking at who's going to be coming in this example, a restaurant. And so obviously they have seafood. There's tons of seafood restaurants. So one is, how do we make ourselves look different? How do we look approachable? But also, how do we appeal to the people that we know that are going to be coming into our restaurant? And so that's how we kind of frame a brand.
Uh-huh. And typically, how long does a rebrand, the work that you do with a client, how long does that typically take?
Yeah. For a branding project, so we're doing like logo identity and then building out like brand assets. Typically you're looking at about 8 weeks, but give or take a little bit depending on how long the client takes to get back with you.
Uh-huh. And Tony, Nexus Louisiana is located in what used to be called Louisiana Technology Park. Like the organization, the tech park also was rebranded to Nexus Louisiana Tech Park. Rebranding an establishing organization can take years and sometimes millions of dollars. Just ask the NFL Washington franchise. In your case, what prompted the rebranding process of both the organization and tech park?
So that decision was made prior to me, I would say 2 CEOs ago.
Uh-huh. And were you part of that process of the rebranding?
That happened 2 CEOs. That happened probably 2016.
Okay.
I started 6 months ago.
Right.
Yeah, so I can't speak on the decision-making process that took place for that.
Are you having any difficulty in sort of ensuring people know who Nexus Louisiana is given the rebranding?
No, I think that quantity is not the goal in terms of the number of people that know about us. We're much more interested in quality of people. And so the way that we reach our target audience is much more surgical. For us, it's not about the number of people that know that we exist. Louisiana is a fairly small state, all things considered. We have about 4 million people population. Of that, the people that are interested in either building new technology or designing technology is a very small group that is very easy to wrap our heads around. We know where they are, we know where they're studying, we know where they're training or working. And so for us, it's less about this exercise of how can we get as many people possible to know about us. Again, various organizations have tried that approach. But for us, it's about how do we identify the community of Louisianans that have the expertise needed to build new technology. And so that requires us to partner with higher education institutions, high schools that have computer science clubs or robotics teams. This is a group that you can put on a fairly small spreadsheet. And most of these are public entities. Finding them and their email addresses is not difficult at all. And so for us, it's just about consistently building community amongst that group. And that's how we're going to accomplish our goals.
Well, I also wanted to ask you then, what type of technologies do you believe Louisiana needs, or who are the organizations that you're working with? Is it oil and gas?
Yeah, so for us, we exist upstream of the established companies that are producing most of our jobs, whether that's petrochemical, oil and gas, and healthcare. Our role is to create the technologies that are needed by looking at the problems Louisiana has. And so we hear all the time that we're ranked 50th, 49th, 48th in all of these different rankings and lists. And so my philosophy is that technology is a means to an end. It has to be used for good. And if it's not improving the lives of Louisianans, that technology shouldn't exist. And so for us, it's an exercise of looking at what those key industries are that you just mentioned. They're identified on Louisiana Economic Development's website. And when we look at an industry, say the healthcare industry, then we have to ask ourselves, what are the problems that industry is trying to solve, right? And so whether that's detecting cancer at an earlier stage, or decreasing childhood obesity, or improving maternal health rates, right? These concrete problems, technology has to be applied to solve those problems. That's the culture we're trying to build, is how can we improve lives through the use of technology, as opposed to a culture of, say, Silicon Valley or other places which are more profit motive driven, where you would say, hey, anyone who has an idea for technology, tell us what you want to build and we'll give you money to build it. We're not interested in just anyone's ideas. We have a very clear sense on what areas we need to use technology to improve, whether that's in healthcare or construction or education. You mentioned oil and gas. We are producing a lot of carbon dioxide that goes into the atmosphere. We need technologies to help capture that and manage it at scale. Coastal erosion is a big problem that technology can help solve. So the list goes on.
You're listening to Out to Lunch. I'm Amy Irvin. I'm talking with Tony Zanders, President and CEO of Nexus Louisiana, and Nick Miner, designer and founder of Miner Design Company. Nick, you are quite the entrepreneur. After a few years of working at notable agencies around town, you launched your own business, Miner Design Company. You earned just $13,000 in your first year of business. Last year, you earned $100,000, give or take or so. How did you use tech to seek out new business?
So technology is becoming more ingrained in everything I do every day, especially with the integration of AI. I think with design, for a long time, a lot of designers and even agencies were kind of scared that was going to come for our jobs. But I think we've kind of learned how to use it to our advantage and stay authentic with what we create, but really streamline a lot of the processes that took a lot of time. So as a one-man shop right now, I'm able to do a ton more of the back-end stuff that took me forever to do. And so now I can really focus on the work. I am growing now, so we're trying to figure out. I'm in this weird stage where I have to figure out, do I hire someone to help, or do I need to figure out better processes? I have a new office building that we're building out right now, and I'm kind of preparing because I feel like hiring will come in the future, but I need somewhere to train, and so there's a lot of unknowns right now, but we're trying to figure it out. But tech is and AI specifically is very helpful in this growth period and me trying to hone in on what I want to focus on.
How are you using AI specifically in that growth?
I use AI for research. I use AI for to help with strategy. So I will give it, what are some of my goals, what I think is the correct way to reach that goal, but ask for its input, and if there's any other ways to reach that goal or things I didn't think of. And lots of times, our thoughts will align, but occasionally it'll come up with some ideas. I'm like, oh, wow, that was a really smart way to achieve that. And so it's super helpful. And especially like when it comes to like emails and even doing pitch decks and things like that, like I can give it what I want it to say and just have it clean it up pretty quickly. So it's super helpful.
And as you're looking to bring on new staff, then what will you be asking them, or what sort of skills will we be looking for in new hires as it pertains to their knowledge of AI or use of AI?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so that's actually something I've been struggling with. It's like, do I hire someone to help me market, or do I hire someone to help me produce the work? And so after some thinking, I think I'm going to hire a low-level producer to help me design, and that way I can focus a little bit more on business development. So I think that's the goal, but like I said, I'm still figuring it out.
And Tony, does Nexus have any ownership stake in the businesses that you're working with and supporting?
No, we don't. As a nonprofit, we try to create a model where we're fundraising and offering grants or non-dilutive funding to the startups that we incubate. We then are able to refer them out to investors who do want to take an equity stake. But we feel like our role in the ecosystem is to be that first check, that first cash that helps them get off the ground without having to make the difficult decision of whether I give up ownership in my company. That's a downstream decision that you have to make once you figure out your business model. And we want to begin working with founders before they have a business model. And so it's hard to make a decision on whether you take funding prior to figuring that out. And so our funding is really just to help them get started. When they have not just an idea, we coach them at that stage, but we incubate them once they have more than an idea. They've written some code, they now have a few customers, and they need to accelerate.
Yes, I was going to ask specifically, are you looking within the industries that you're identifying and with the companies then, are there specific areas in which you want your money to go to?
There's, I would say, geographic areas we can have that conversation about. There's industry or vertical areas as well. I love that our mandate is for the state of Louisiana, and I think previous administrations of Nexus had various interpretations on the relationship between Baton Rouge versus the rest. And the way I read the statute is that because we receive our funding from the hospitality tax in our parish, the work we do and the money we spend does have to be in EBR. However, the statute also mentions either the phrase statewide or Louisiana over 7 times, which means as the capital region, we have a unique responsibility to provide these services for the rest of the state. And so just this week, I was up in Ruston and Monroe and Alexandria, meeting with engineering departments at our universities there, getting them to come down to Baton Rouge to participate in some upcoming competitions that we have.
Mm-hmm. And what percentage of businesses or startups are you working with that are outside of the Baton Rouge area?
So in order to work with us, you have to be here. And so we've done a good job recruiting companies to come here for a period of time. I think another point we should all acknowledge is that building a tech startup is a long period of time. On average, 10 years before you start to see some success. Along that 10-year journey, you're going to have multiple addresses. You're going to have multiple locations. And we want to work with companies when they're between 2 to 3 employees, 2 to 3 years of development into the product, or $2 to $3 million raised in venture capital. If you've raised $5 million, you're probably too late for us, right? If you have 7 employees, you're probably too large for us, right? If you've been working on this for 8 years, probably don't need to be incubated, right?
Yeah.
So we have this window that we're passionate about.
So while your mission is to work and recruit from all 64 parishes, they ultimately have to relocate here? Is that what you're saying?
For our incubation model, right? Because we do have a physical campus. Today, it's about 47,000 square feet. Next year, we're relocating and reducing to about 28,000 square feet. But either way, we have an in-person resident model that we think is integral to success. Just being around 7 days a week, like-minded folks that are on the same journey with you. And so what they do after they work with us, whether they go back to Rapides Parish or Orleans Parish, that's great. But this is, as the capital region, we have this unique responsibility, just like we do for policy. From a technology support perspective, coming through here for a chapter should be a part of every Louisiana founder's journey.
Mm-hmm. And Nick, I've heard that people these days want a marketing brand that comes with a backstory. Is that true?
I mean, I think every successful brand has some sort of story they have to lean into. And if you don't, you have to create one. You can have a pretty logo, you can have great materials, but if you don't have something for your consumer to buy into, like you're kind of setting yourself up for failure. So I think a lot of companies, no matter what it is, they have some sort of backstory. It's about how to lean into it, how to embellish it, and how to make that intertwined into your brand.
Do you have some tips for mom and pop shops or maybe one of Tony's startups?
First, I think the biggest thing is figure out your target audience, see who your competitors are. I would suggest if you're going for a look, let's go ahead and print out all your competitors or organize all their logos. Make sure that you fit in that world, but you want to distinguish yourself to be a little different visually. And especially you want to look at the messaging. How are these people talking about themselves? And that way when you go to market your brand, market your business, you kind of have some examples of how other people in your industry are talking about themselves, but you can also riff off of that and create something new, making sure that you do stand out and be a little different.
Mm-hmm. And Tony, how does Nexus differ from the state's other incubators like Idea Village in New Orleans and Opportunity Machine in Lafayette?
I think the first way is our statutory governance. Those legislators came together in 1992 at a pretty forward-thinking plan to make sure Louisiana doesn't get left behind of this high-tech, quote-unquote, revolution. Our other nonprofit counterparts that are doing accelerator or incubator work don't have that same statutory mandate, number one. I think number two, we vary in a few other types of ways. You mentioned the Idea Village, for example, of which I was a member of their Village X cohort with my company SkillType. Offered great support to us during that phase. I think their audience and radius is much larger. 13 states, I believe I heard John Atkinson refers to as kind of that Gulf Coast radius, whereas for us, we're only Louisiana. They also support non-technology companies such as, CPG, consumer packaged goods companies, or any other kind of high-growth company, whereas we have a clear mandate to only work on hardware and software products. And so you can go down the list of other groups like Opportunity Machine in Lafayette, which has a focus just for Acadiana. I look at our role as partnering with them, collaborating with them. To use a sports metaphor, I'm personally interested in assists. And so we talk a lot about wins or points that we can score, and we count these economic development wins. I'm much more interested in us counting assists. And so how often does Nexus pass along a founder or a team to Lafayette because the environment in Lafayette is more conducive to their particular startup, whether perhaps they need proximity to University of Louisiana at Lafayette and some researchers they have there, and so we don't own these founders, we don't own these teams, and we have to sort of shirk that multi-generational culture we have of hoarding things within our parish or our zip code or what high school did you go to as sort of this way to vet out people. Because, like I mentioned earlier, we only have 4 million people here. We're smaller than the city of Houston as a state. And so for us to think that New Orleans can compete against Houston or Atlanta alone, that's like a fool's errand. And so we have to sort of collaborate more, and measuring assists, I think, is a tangible way to do that.
Mm-hmm. After 2020, for a year or two, our default conversation was the pandemic. No matter what we were talking about, everything came back to what was happening before or after COVID. Today, the default conversation, especially in business, is AI. Is AI coming for my job? If so, when? What should I do to prevent AI from taking my job? Or what should I do if it does take my job? You might notice the use of if. The fact is, right now, nobody really knows what the future of work will look like. But as it changes, Tony, you're in the forefront of that change, working with tech companies that are literally creating the future. And Nick, you're proving that no matter how creative technology can be, the source of all that creativity is, after all, a human being with the equivalent of a pen and piece of paper. Tony and Nick, congratulations on everything you've achieved to date. I look forward to keeping up with your continued success. Thank you both for joining me today on Out to Lunch.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much.
My guests today on Out to Lunch have been Tony Zanders, President and CEO of Nexus, Louisiana, and Nick Miner, designer and founder of Miner Design Company. We edited this show to fit into our time slot here on WRKF. You can hear our unedited conversation and find out more about Tony Zanders and Nick Miner on Out to Lunch Baton Rouge podcast. You can find and subscribe to the Out to Lunch Baton Rouge podcast on your podcast app and on our website, itsbatonrouge.com. If you want to know what we look like, you can find photos from this show on itsbatonrouge.com and on our Out to Lunch Baton Rouge social media. These photos were taken by Ian Lito and Miranda Alvarez. You can find more of Ian and Miranda's photos at albalitomedia.com and at Alba Lito Media on all socials. Out to Lunch is a production of INO Broadcasting for itsbatonrouge.com and WRKF 89.3 FM. The producer of our show is Grant Morris. Our technical producer is Eric Merle. Our associate producers are Peter Raschuti and Ann Edelman. Our researcher is Holly Dutchman. Today's show was engineered by JT O'Neill. I'm Amy Irvin. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to meeting you again next week around the lunch table for more business, Baton Rouge style, on Out to Lunch.
Out to Lunch Baton Rouge is recorded live over lunch at Mansers on the Boulevard in Baton Rouge. Mansers is open for lunch daily 11 to 2, for dinner nightly, and for brunch on Saturdays and Sundays. Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys and offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Luba Workers' Comp, a regional insurance carrier dedicated to providing reliable workers' compensation coverage to employers and workers in 13 states across the Southeast. With personalized service, trusted expertise, and tailored solutions, Luba helps businesses protect what matters most. Discover more at lubawc.com. And by JP Morgan Chase, a partner in financial planning. Looking ahead to retirement, growing your business, or for commercial banking, JP Morgan Chase offers advice and solutions tailored to individual needs and client well-being. More information is at jpmorganchase.com. Mitchell Foreman wrote and performs all the music on Out to Lunch. You can hear Mitchell's music anywhere great jazz is sold or streamed, and at mitchellforeman.com.